Can you hear my cat's automatic feeder calling her name in the background? That's why I was
It
waiting
did.
a second. Oh.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I should have waited an extra minute to start the live. Okay, anyway. Hi, I'm Tara Lynn of Geek Saga Entertainment, here with my co-host Manny for the Geek Saga Show series, The Media That Made Us. This series focuses on media that the two of us consumed in our younger or maybe even just slightly younger years, media that helped shape our current interests and that we still love.
So I'm Manny, and for our 9th Media That Made Us episode, we're continuing our coverage of the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series discussing the Crossroads Arc, which includes BSG Season 3 episodes, well, 11 or 12, depending on where you're viewing episode numbers, through the end of the season. I had to do that long and dramatic pause there. But just to be clear, this means we are discussing the episodes titled Take a Break from All Your Worries Through the Crossroads Part 2.
Before we get started, just a heads up that you can follow me and therefore all of the Geek Saga endeavors at a Geek Saga on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube.
And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Manissimo Art.
Just a couple of other house cleaning items before we dig in. If you're watching this as a webcast on Facebook or YouTube, pretty please make sure to hit those like and or subscribe buttons. And if you're catching the audio only version on your favorite podcatcher, we could really use some more ratings, especially on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and would super very much greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment to mark the Geek Saga podcast 5 stars wherever you're listening. Last but hopefully not least, we hope that you'll check out the Geek Saga Entertainment Patreon. We have a lot of tiers with just $3 per month, getting you the most prevalent perk of early access to podcast episodes. You can check that out at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment.
Our format for this Media That Made Us series includes our top 5 moments that made it, basically our hot takes from the portion of the series we're covering, followed by any insights we've uncovered from rewatches and or being longtime fans. And as we get into the arc's top 5, just a warning that we'll be talking about some pretty dark, deep shit.
Yeah, to say the least. As our first top moment is she's one of the good ones, aka the revelation in the episode called The Woman King that the never seen before Dr. Robert is killing Sagittarians. Just to be clear, the labeling of this top 5 moment comes from a very specific conversation that is had after this revelation that this doctor's been going around murdering Sagittarians. After Dr. Robert is caught out, this again brand new and therefore obviously questionable character asks who gets the medication when there's not enough to go around, the Sagittarian who won't even lift a finger to save his own race, or a Viper pilot. And then he insists that he didn't harm D, who is in fact Sagittarian and got sick in this episode. But the doctor's like, I didn't do anything to her. She's fine. And Hilo sarcastically says, right, she's one of the good ones. And just like big ooh there, because that whole they're one of the good ones bullshit has always been a thing, but watching this episode now especially was fucking rough, to be honest.
Yep.
Like, I do want to just rewind a bit because like, oh my God, the frustration, even watching this the first time around, that something seriously questionable is going on. And like, as viewers, you know it too, right? I'm pretty sure I was like, yeah, there's something super fishy about this whole thing. I mean, listen, we talked about this, I think, when Deanna Beers came on the scene way back when, and we're like, brand new character. There's like no way this is gonna pan out as being just like oh yeah, this is a totally brand new doctor who's not doing anything wrong, guys. Perfectly fine, everything's cool here, go about your business. But it's just, I don't know, like poor Hilo is like being the only one who sees or is like trying to acknowledge what is or might be going on. And as again, like as a viewer and especially as a lover of Hilo myself, it's like, come on, listen to him, you know.
Yeah, Hilo this is just one of his memorable Hilo moments. He's just such a good guy. I love Hilo so much, and he just does all the good things. But yeah, he was the only person that was sane. And like, look, even when the plot didn't like unfold, obviously he was like, this new doctor that came out of nowhere. I mean, there was something going on. There was something fishy for sure, you know. And I don't know. It just and also, not only it was fishy, but Doc Robert, he also was in the first X-Men movie as like an asshole as well. So it's like I already knew something was bad. I was like, oh, I know this guy from somewhere. Oh, yeah, he's probably killing those people. I guarantee it. So I don't know. So there, when it comes to like real life kind of implications with this kind of stuff, this is kind of something that has happened in society a few times with people. There's like I'm not going to get deep into it, but yeah, there's like weird things like that. So I thought it was cool that they just kind of had an episode like this to kind of like because Ronald, he likes to throw in things, real life
Yeah.
situations into stuff, which I think makes it like really cool. And I'm right there with you with the DO. She's one of the good ones. That was, yeah.
And I know that with the Sagittarians, it's this whole like religion thing
Hmm.
where they don't believe in medication, and that's kind of part of why everybody is so frustrated, or the biggest
Hmm.
reason why everybody seems so frustrated with them. But also like the hatred seems to go a little bit deeper.
Hmm.
I mean, and not even, I don't just mean for, obviously with Dr. Roberts, obviously it's a lot deeper, but
Hmm.
I like, it's kind of like anti-vaxxers, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're mad about it. Y'all are the reason measles and shit is coming back. But I like the essentially like this guy is trying to kill all the Sagittarians. He's not just not
Yeah.
treating them, because they don't want to be treated. He's like legitimately poisoning them when
Like
they come for
poisoning them.
treatment. Ooh. And I just I want to say like Doc Cottle, unfortunately, is not at his best in this episode.
No.
Like it's in a way, it's not on the level of him lying to Hilo and Sharon about Hera dying,
Hmm.
but also maybe it is kind of worse because like he's lying about having done the autopsy, and he's lying because he's tired and he didn't feel like doing it. He admits that. And like
Hmm.
listen, I get it. People lie for stupid reasons, and poor Doc Cottle has had the whole freaking fleet on his back,
Hmm.
treating everybody. It's seemingly completely on his own because who knows where Dr. Robert was all this other time before, but
Yep.
he's taking care of, and he's particularly taking care of like all the important people all this time, the heads of the fleet and everything. Important people
Hmm.
is what I mean. Um, but also like other people died because of this, like because he lied and didn't do the autopsy when he said he did. So like no bueno, Doc Cottle. Like
But I think it's like it's kind of the danger of like I always tell people like it's okay to ask questions, right? Even if they're crazy questions, and so that way you can just kind of get corrected, like, but it's okay. And this was one of those situations to where like Hilo is being punished, and really at to the detriment of many other people, just because Hilo asked the question, and Doc Connell just didn't take it seriously in any kind of way, that he straight up lied to him just to make him go away. That was it. And
mhm,
that's a real world implication also right there, where it's
yeah.
like, look, dude, just if you don't know for sure, do the autopsy and just find out. So that way you can just cross it off. Well, it wasn't that, or it was that,
And there's not like a
so
single other person on the ship who can do an autopsy, or in the fleet who could do an
yeah, like,
autopsy.
is there only two doctors? Well, one, but whatever. But
I mean, obviously we don't want Dr. Robert doing it, but
no, no. Yeah, we have one doctor on the fleet, and he's old and he smokes. So you guys may be doctorless really soon.
yeah, and I know funny enough, I believe that the director of this episode and the showrunner more had like differing opinions on it being kind of a one note episode, because I
Hmm.
think this is something you and I talked a little bit about in preparation for
Hmm.
recording this. But the director had kind of said that the episode isn't just about people being racist. It's subtly shows, you know, the bad things that can happen when good men don't speak up. People can die. But I don't know how much I agree with that, because Hilo does speak up. He tries to speak up, like, over and over and over again. Like, he's getting himself in trouble, getting yelled at, having fist fights with Ty because nobody's listening to him.
Yep.
And Moore, on the other hand, said, you know, this episode doesn't say anything new. It just says that racism is bad, which, you know, it is. But also, I guess he didn't really love how Ty and Tyrell's like animosity toward the Sagittarians kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And people kind of made like comments about the Sagittarians under their breath this whole series, but in this one, it's like, whoa. I mean, they're basically barely above Cylons in the pecking order of who people don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how bad is it really, guys? Come on. Okay, they believe something different, you know? Let's face facts. They had their own colony. They weren't anywhere near you until this, and now we have to live in the same thing, you know, in the same fleet now, you know, but
Also, like, I, as a Sagittarius myself, I have to know, like, what did these writers and showrunners have against Sagittarius? Like, people who are Sagittarius. It's like, Sagittarius?
Someone came out of a bad relationship is what happened.
Yeah, someone really hates people born between November 21st and December 21st or whatever. I'm like smack in the middle, so I don't know what the beginning and end dates are, but oh man, yeah, but still, like, very I mean, the whole episode is all about like being othered and the judgment that rises against them because they have these different beliefs, and it is it's not the best episode, don't get me wrong, not by any means, but as sort of one-off episodes go, it at least has a point, I think. Like, listen, it's not the black market episode.
That is probably the worst episode of the whole series.
I think everybody who loves this series is in agreement with that, honestly.
Yeah, that was probably like the worst, you know. But yeah, you know, I think that the episode does a good job on just kind of, you know, portraying that, like, you know, people hate other people just because of like something that they believe in that's like a little off, or they're not taken seriously or deemed as any type of like, you know, worthy of anything or having an opinion, or hey, maybe I'm just don't want to. No. It's because they believe this, and then they just got to like shit show them and just fucking treat them like shit, you know. And thank God we have fucking Hilo there to fucking set the record straight, you know, because he's just a good guy. He's just a good man, and he's like, look, I'm just fair, you know. He's trying to just, I don't know.
And also smart enough to like see that something's not right too.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe he's just on edge from, you know, being kind of pushed aside himself.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, that's not the only sort of, oh, this is maybe too real top 5 moment we have to talk about.
Yeah. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Collective Bargaining 101. Or the episode Dirty Hands, being a political polemic Moore always said this show wouldn't be. This was a good episode, but I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty generic, you know? Like, I know what they were trying to do. I feel like in one of two camps. I feel like they were trying to, you know, explore this kind of dichotomy between people who like the have and have nots, right? Because you see these, you know, the only people we ever see are like on the Galactica, and they have these things and all this stuff, and we don't see where's the fuel coming from, who's making this kind of stuff. So now you have like this like coal mining operation on these other ships, and they're working, you know, 16-hour days, and they're working 7 days a week and all this kind of stuff, and just so the fleet can like stay alive, right? So yeah, you know, but on the other side of it, I felt like the episode is probably more about the chief than anything else, right? Because when we see him on New Caprica and he's doing the strike, he was very passionate and very angry and very like, you know, and in this one, he was just kind of like, and he just walks up quietly to the thing and just turns it off. And he's like, yeah, guys, we're striking, you know, like, okay, so I don't know. And I feel like when you do things out of anger, it's like you're being run by like emotion. But when you do things like the way the chief did here, it's like, I feel like it's almost taken more seriously because he's in a calm state. He's not like, he's not trying to start shit. He's trying to like make a point, you know?
Yeah. I think that the juxtaposition of this episode so close to the Tyrell is a Cylon reveal, more on that later,
Mhm,
is really good. The fact that
mhm,
they I mean, what is it, like 4 or 5 episodes apart, it's a good number of episodes, but it's not like seasons, right? And
mhm,
I think that they placed this one nicely for that reason, and of course, it only really makes sense coming after New Caprica because Chief was the head of the union there too,
mhm.
so yeah, I like the timing of it. I think they did a good job with that. And I think they tossed around this one being placed earlier too, and I'm glad they didn't.
No, I'm glad they didn't. Because, you know, the chief had really been walking around just kind of like alone, stuck in his own head, just kind of going through the motions, you know, like when you see
Mm.
him in any scenes kind of like building up to this. He's just kind of like, it's almost like he doesn't have any purpose, you know, but
Other than his job.
other than his job, right? So that's all he's doing. He's just like, oh, okay, doing this, gonna pull this Viper apart, do this, you know, whatever. But it was nice to see this kind of being almost like a turning point for him where he's getting more like, I don't know what's the correct word, like, justified almost, and like I can't think of a right word for it, but um I don't know, I feel like he's becoming more of like a poignant person at this point. Like now it's
Mm.
like, okay, here's the chief's beliefs, here's what he's doing, and then what it builds into later on. I think it was fantastic, you know. And you're right, and the way it was placed in the season was good. It was definitely a good build up.
Yeah, and like, I just, again, the let's be real, this episode along with what went on in The Woman King,
Hmm.
it's just this one's also hitting real hard right now of all times.
Yep.
This idea of essentially keeping people in their place, and this is a little more heavy-handed on the like inherited jobs and careers sort of thing, but
Hmm.
that does, how all of that pertains to what are essentially the lower classes.
Hmm.
And in this case, it's more about the colony that they're from,
Yep.
but I mean, I you see the point they're trying to make, and again, like, especially right now, that the whole idea of keeping these lower level, colony survivors in their
Hmm.
place in these, I mean, not just like menial jobs, these are very necessary jobs, but they're dangerous, and we know that the Viper pilots are working overtime. We know that the deckhands are working overtime, just
Hmm.
like the people on this Tillium ship are, but it's still not quite like, yes, they're the Viper pilots are in danger too, but it's not, I don't know. There's a difference between going out there and actually like fighting and feeling like you're just part, like a cog in the machine, I think.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and
which
I
is
think
part
that
of.
yeah, and that's a really good point, right? Because yeah, the Viper pilots do fight and they do their stuff, but they really get to kind of relax sometimes also,
Mm,
right? And then you have these people in the mines that they're working 7 days a week and they had what, like 12-year-olds in there, you know, and they're doing this kind of stuff. And you have to be careful with that, right? Because when you're in a position to where the fleet is, you're justifying modern day slavery for survival
yeah.
is what it is, right? So then what happens is like, okay, so then, but really that's the justification that the people up here make. Well, they're like,
Mhm.
well, we got to survive, so they have to sacrifice,
Yep.
right?
And then it becomes that lottery system thing, and this poor kid who worked for, like, a summer on a farm and probably
Hmm.
never handled actual farm machinery during, like, he was probably, mucking stalls and, I don't know, milking cows or something, and they're like, "Oh, well, now you gotta be a heavy machinist. Go have fun, be safe, don't
Yep.
lose a limb or anything."
Yep. Yep.
Uh, and then, like, I'm a little bit torn, like, how do you feel about the react like, when Chief, shuts down
Hmm.
the operation and says, "We're on strike." How do you feel about Adama and Rosalind's reaction to it? Because even now, I had kind of forgotten that Adama legit threatens to shoot Callie because the deckhands
Hmm.
go on strike in solidarity, right? And it's
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I had forgotten that Adama straight up threatened to murder a mother who
Hmm.
is, like, also part of his crew and Tyrell's wife. Like, I had forgotten about that. It's a lot for our admiral, honestly.
I think it was really extreme for what he was trying to do. That it's like, okay, like Because in the end, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, go ahead. Like, because part of me would have been like, okay, shoot my wife, Admiral Kane.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead. Right. And look what happened to her. Right. And her people and all this kind of stuff, I mean, let's face facts. How many people from the Pegasus are still around at this point? Right.
Oh
Not
God.
many,
Yeah. Do we
So
even
it's like,
know who? Like,
I don't even know who anymore, but like, yeah, sure. Like if you want to play it with like a heavy hand, go ahead. But the people are always going to resent you for it. And one day in that time of calm, right, you may find yourself getting thrown out of an airlock,
yeah.
right? Because people don't forget stuff like that, So, and like, I understand what he was doing and I understand what the president was doing because they're scared. We have to get this stuff going. But it's like, guys, this would be really easy if you guys just sat down and talked for like 10 minutes. You can probably figure out a solution or at least okay, let's start working for this, but let's get everything up and going. So that way we're not stranded out here, as opposed to coming with this like heavy hand,
Well, I mean, and the thing about it too is they come in with this insanely heavy hand, and then as soon as everything's turned back on, they're like, by the way, we're giving into like all of your demands. They're like the vast
Yeah,
majority of them. So it's like, I mean, I understand the importance of timing, like you said, and like we need to get this shit back up and running immediately. We don't have time to go through weeks or months of negotiations. And also, of course, it's a lot of it's for the drama of a TV show and whatnot, but it's still like, really, okay.
Yeah.
Like you're like good that they gave into so much of the stuff. But also, I don't know.
It was very unclimactic the way it ended. It was
Yeah.
just like, oh, by the way, yeah, we'll give you whatever you want. It's like, why didn't you do that instead of threatening my wife? Like, I don't understand what you were trying to do.
I mean, I think they were just it was just a power play, honestly. Like they had to make sure everybody still knew that they were in charge, which kind of also then takes away from that. It's like, oh, we gave into a lot of your demands, but there's always that we can always take them back. Don't forget. So,
which really falls perfectly into the episode, doesn't it? Right? Because the episode is all about that. It's all about the have and have nots, So
yeah. At least the have-nots in this situation are like they're on the side of the right for the most part.
Yeah.
They're not there's there's no Admiral Kane for them to rally behind
No, exactly.
against Adama to get like, I don't know. God.
Yep.
Well, on a somewhat lighter note, our next top moment is Baltar getting off. Okay. We discussed a more crude version of that in our last episode. But this time around, we are talking about him being found not guilty of treason and crimes against humanity in Crossroads Part 2. This was, I mean, obviously the build up to his trial and it took a few episodes, and his trial itself was spread across the 2-part season finale, but and it involved so much. I mean, we get Lee suddenly becoming a lawyer and also going against Adama, and he might not like Baltar at all, but he's still fighting for him to get this fair trial and putting his opinion and everything out there, being a good lawyer for the man of the people, Baltar over here. But I mean, I don't remember being surprised that Baltar was found not guilty.
I was when I watched it.
Really?
I was, because I really felt that I knew it was a 2-part season ender at the time, and I think that it's not that the show was like uncertain, but I did know that I think it was like Ronald Moore who had mentioned a few times that he was writing himself into a corner, right? Which is why the show kind of ended at 4 seasons as opposed to making more, because he's like, I just wrote myself into a corner. Anything beyond that, it would have just been. So I was kind of anticipating almost like, okay, they're gonna kill Boltar in the first episode, and then in the second episode, they're gonna find Earth. Right? Like that's just kind of what I was figuring happened. So the fact that like Boltar got off, and I was one of these people that was very much like, throw Baltar out of the airlock. fuck him, like because of his fucking pussy ass shit or whatever, and he couldn't fucking like stand up for for the colonies and all this kind of stuff in New Caprica. But like when 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 Apollo gets up there and makes the entire case for him, God, I felt terrible. I was like, wow, I'm just one of those people at the mob who just wants to like, with the mob and they just want to burn the person. And when you really sit back and think about it,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, like what other, you know, I don't know, what other outcome could have there been for anybody? I mean, everybody's all about self-preservation. That's just what Baltar was doing, but and it's like Apollo said, but because we don't like you, you have to go, and all the guilt and all the shame, we're hoping that it's just going to go right out there, with you. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, but no, it was cool. And I loved the fact that, that the Admiral was one of the people who voted, to get him off, and
Mhm.
when he's sitting there looking at the president and he's like, no one's asking anyone to forget or forgive, but we have to look to the future. I was like, yeah, that's awesome, dude. That was
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect scene.
Yeah. I think that I'm almost wondering, because it's been so long since I first watched the episode. It's like there's this part of me that's like I kind of always assumed that he was gonna be found not guilty. But
Mhm.
I think back then, and honestly, even more so today, I just have this mindset of like, my God, karma's these people who most deserve it, they're never gonna get their karma. Like, look at
Mhm.
where we are in the world right now. Look at who our fucking president is.
Mhm.
Um, I look at, some of the situations I've been dealing with sort of professionally and sort of personally the past few years, and like watching this person like just treat everybody around them like total shit and like just get away with it
And get
somehow.
away with
Like
it.
there's like
Yep.
no comeuppance. It's like, so maybe there's just that kind of pessimistic part of me that's like, he may have deserved it, but he was never gonna get it. So
Yep. Yep.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't think I was ever really super surprised that they found him not guilty. And some of that even more so back then may have been like I couldn't imagine the show without Baltar. Like,
Yeah.
even though they give Six a different story, um,
Mhm.
for most of season 4 with Ty, we didn't know that was coming. So I was just like, well,
Mhm.
what am I gonna do with Six? Like what if they get rid
Yeah.
of Baltar, and then also like who's gonna be, because Zarek was kind of pushed down the ladder, all the
Mhm.
rungs,
Mhm.
when he, because of the tribunal, the secret
Mhm.
tribunal thing. So he's kind of not powerful enough right now to be
Mhm.
up against Rosalind. So like without Baltar, she's just got like full reign, and I'm
Yep.
not entirely against that, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's true, but I did like the way it kind of the trial ended, right? When he's talking to his lawyer and the other guy, and he's like, "Oh no, we gotta what do you call do a book deal and like
yeah,
a book
yeah,
tour and all this stuff," and they're just like, "No, we're done. Like you figure it out,"
yeah.
And it's like, "Where am I going to live?" And they're just like, "Well, I don't know. It kind of sounds like your problem, not mine," Like,
Yeah, the
oh
lawyer
man.
that sort of comes and goes is he's an interesting character with his weird little sunglasses and his cat. I mean, I like that he had a cat.
I like the cat. I like that he walked with a cane and then put it down at the end and like walked away. Look, there's something that is so sleazy about him, right? But he kind of always plays a character like that. When you see this
Yeah,
actor,
mhm,
he does a lot. He's a great actor. He's fantastic. I
yeah.
love watching him. But he had that smugness. I don't know. There was something sleazy about him, but he was definitely like the kind of lawyer you would want if you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and I mean, I don't remember. I feel like I might have seen, like, a theory way back in the day that he wasn't even, like, real or
Oh,
something, but I was like,
nice.
but he got, like, bombed, and, like, he was in a hospital
He
bed,
was in a
like,
hospital
actually
bed.
injured. Like, it wasn't as if he just sort of flitted in and out in this sort of, like, non-tangible way. Like, yes, he's there and you can touch him, but, like, not like once he gets injured by the bomb and is in the hospital bed for a while, it's like, okay, I don't see, I like the idea of this theory, but I don't see how it's at all plausible. Although again, he, like Dr. Robert, we never saw him before. And do we ever see him again? I can't 100%
I don't think
remember,
so.
but I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
I think he
Like
was just
95% sure we don't ever see him again. But if I'm wrong, someone feel free to correct me. All right. Well, I think we can move on to our number 4 top moment.
Starbucks. Yeah. Starbucks' explosive death and magical return, which spans the end of Maelstrom to the end of Crossroads Part 2. You know, yeah. When I watched this, like, I really didn't think it was going to go there with what they did, but they did it, and it was really good, you know, because it was like there was like always like, it was in that episode, the first season, where she crash lands on that planet, you know, and then she steals the Cylon Raider later or whatever. There's like a really cool scene where it just focuses on her face and she's getting kind of thrown around, you know, and you can see the background behind her just kind of rolling around as she's just falling, you know. And there's something about Katie Sackhoff that she just looks so good in a helmet and in a cockpit, you know, that it just like, there's something about it that is just like great. So when you see her in there, you know, and when she follows the Cylon into that gas storm, right? And you see it, it's what she was drawing when she was younger. It's what she was on the, you know, on the in the temple, right? Patrick would have loved it because it was just like a total buildup of prophetic stuff, you know? So it was great. But that explosion scene I thought was fantastic. I was like, that is so cool, because you get to see it kind of happening like for real, right? And it wasn't like the ship exploded, it was like it fucking imploded, you know? So it was like this crazy, and with the ship on fire, and you know she's in there and all this stuff, and she's just like, no, just let me go, it's okay, and all this stuff. And it's like, it was heart-wrenching. I mean, I knew she wasn't going to be gone forever, but it was heart-wrenching.
See, I mean, I didn't know that. I think because like I love Starbucks so much that when it happened, I was like, no. Like this, like there's this part of me that's like, no, it can't be real. But then there's this other part of me that's like, oh my God, like of course it's gonna be real. This would happen, you know. To my, you know, I guess second favorite character, slightly behind Hilo. But yeah, well, and also the reactions to her death, like Adama's specifically, was so visceral. I mean, he destroys his model ship that we've seen him working on since the miniseries, I think, really, but definitely since season 1. And it just, yeah, heart-wrenching. Like it's heart-wrenching as a viewer for a character that you've fallen in love with, but then watching, even though they're not real people, guys, it's like it felt real in that moment. Even watching it now, like having seen it 4 or 5 times before, it's like, you know, I feel myself getting choked up, and it's like, don't cry over this, Tara. Come on, you've seen this before. You know she comes back like in 2 episodes.
No, it still hurts though. It still hurts to watch, you know. But I loved it. I thought it was just, I don't know, it was very cinematic. I loved it.
I was surprised she came back so soon. Like I that's one of those things, you know, that if this show was being made today, I would bet that there's at least like a 90% chance that they would have pushed that return off until the beginning of season 4.
Yeah.
You know, like they want to give that extra, like and of course we get another cliffhanger as well, but they would double down on it.
Yep.
You know, if it was airing now, I think. Particularly if it was a streaming series. There were the half seasons would be 2 years apart, and
oh yeah. Gosh.
Oh man, but I mean, yeah, I don't know, did you think she came back like did she come back sooner than you expected, or did you kind of feel like
no, I was kind of expecting her to come back. The way she comes back was fantastic. I loved the way she came back, you know, like, because Adama's out there, he's in his ship, you know, that they just let him go. He's like, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm not part of the colonial fleet anymore. And then he's sitting in the tube like, yeah, come on, throw me out there, you know. And like he goes out there, and there's like 2 really good angles, right? Like I've always like liked Battlestar so much because of their camera usage that they use when during ship scenes and all this kind of stuff. It's always been very creative and very cool. So when he's sitting there and he's trying to look around, and there's just like the nebula behind him, so it's really bright, and you just see the outline of another ship kind of like hover like right behind him real quick, and you can see it's an old Viper, right? So it's like, the heck? And then it does it again when it's like it shows his backside, and all you see is the other one come right behind him, and you can see it's the old. I was like, what the hell? And he's looking around, and then all of a sudden she's like there. I was like, dude, nice. I knew she was going to come back, and I was like, but why? Right? Like that was the big question. Like, but why and how? Like now I'm confused. But good to have you back. Your chair is still warm. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you got it from the couch for a beer and maybe
Yeah.
putzed around the kitchen a little bit,
Mm,
maybe went to the bathroom for a minute, stopped to pet the dog, came
yep.
back and, it's like you've been gone longer than expected, but not
Hmm.
barely any time at all.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, no, I agree. The angles and the way they played that was really cool. And actually, this is something I meant to ask you in our chat, but since I'm here and I forgot, when they say who's in Viper number whatever, are they
Hmm.
asking that about Lee or do
No,
they
it's
see
Lee.
Apollo's Viper? Okay. So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Like, are they ask of course, knowing that she's coming back, I'm
Hmm.
thinking, wait, did they ask that about Lee because he hasn't been in a Viper in a while? Or did they ask that about this random Viper that this blip that they can tell is a Viper because it's still like on their systems and everything that has just appeared also because she's already like out there as they're launching, right? Like she's right there as soon as they steady out, basically.
You know what? You could be right. I think
Yeah.
that that's actually interesting. I think the reason I didn't think that is because that scene, where Hilo says that is immediately after Lee takes off, I think. So I just
Mhm.
associated it as that.
Oh,
But
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
but you know what? You could
same.
be right. Yeah, but you could totally be right. It could have been. But the thing is that I don't know.
I
Man,
think
that's a good
I
one.
see. I
I
think
don't know.
you're probably right that it was about Lee, but really, again, like she's probably coming up on their sis. Oh, my dogs are going to start barking.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Someone's at the door. Um, like she's probably coming up on their I imagine her ship is coming up on their system again
Mhm.
anyway,
Yep.
because it's still one of their ships and it still works and she's still able to talk to Lee over the comms. So
But then wouldn't it be, why are there 2 Viper 3s? Right? Because
yeah.
I don't think they call the Viper like the number by like what the actual ship is, but like where it's launching from or something, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So they would have said, why is there 2 of them?
Yeah,
Or it
maybe.
would have been like, why is there a Viper 3? We just lost that one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Out,
I
out of
mean,
out of out of all of our top fives, this is the one that we're tearing apart right
yeah,
now.
I know. This is the weird thing. This is we're not even tearing apart the top 5. We're just tearing apart whether or not like who this
Yeah,
one fucking
exactly.
throwaway line was about. Like, I guess who cares? But this is what happens when you're watching, a handful of episodes from a show that you've watched a million times and you pick up on things that you didn't pick up on before.
But
Um,
it was really cool. Okay, so one of the coolest things like that I loved was the exact way it ended, right? Because he's flying next to her and she's just like, I've been to Earth and I'm going to take us there. And it's got the song playing, it's got All Along the Watchtower, but the Battlestar version. So it's like this weird, ominous kind of version of this song. I've heard that
mhm.
song covered so many times and I've never liked any of them, but like this one was so good. It's dark. And the way
Yeah.
it just kind of pans away from the ship and it pans all the way out of the galaxy and it like flips and then it zooms in again and it shows you Earth. And you're just like, oh my God, they're right there. They're like a few blocks away, you know? Uh,
Google Maps is telling you to turn
exactly.
right at the next nebula.
Exactly. But that was a great cliffhanger ending,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
that they showed Earth and you're just like, okay, so Earth does exist, right?
Yeah.
And there it is, and they're almost there,
Yeah, and Starbuck knows now because
And
she
Starbuck knows now.
died and came back.
Yep.
Okay, well, that might be how the episode ends, but we had to close out our top 5 with a different moment because finally we reveal the fifth of our final top 5 moments from BSG season 3. The fact that all of the weirdness a certain 4 characters began experiencing in Crossroads Part 1 all comes to a head in Crossroads Part 2 with the reveal
Yep.
of sadly not all 5 because it would have went, and that's why I tossed around whether this should be number 4 or number 5 of our top moments, but whatever. Sadly not all 5, but 4 of the final 5 Cylons that we've been, hearing about all this time and had no idea who they might be, and then it's like bam, here you go. Let's have these 4 characters be going kind of crazy hearing this song all around the ship for 2 episodes basically, and then they all come together in a room, and it's Tyrell, Ty, Anders, and Tori.
Yep.
And honestly, I gotta be honest, like they missed out with not having a 4th T name here. Like,
Yeah.
Anders is really kind of like
Exactly.
he's like the wrong crayon in the box, like
Exactly.
And I know Tori is her first name and the other 2 are their last names, but still Tyrell, Ty, Tori, and Anders.
Anders, no, not Anders. Tommy, that guy cleaning the window. Come on, you're the last one. Come on.
It's oh my gosh, it's like Steven Hughes, garnet, garnet, amethyst, and pearl, and Steven. It's like the 3, gems, and then this kid.
Yep. It was good, and it was such a great because again, you can hear it's the song, and it's weird because they're playing it with the sitar, so it's like it has this weird sound to it, like that Indian sound to it, and it's fantastic. I mean, I love it. It's so good. And the one who's really going crazy with it is like Ty, right? Because he's the one who freaks out in the courtroom. He's the one who's listening to the bulkheads. Everyone else is just kind of like,
it's in the ship.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was a great build up. They all come together at last, and the only person who's just kind of like is like the chief.
Shit. Yeah.
Like Ty's like, deadbolt that door. Anders is like, you guys get away from me, whatever. And the chief is just like, yeah, whatever. Hey guys, yeah, we're Cylons. We've always been from the beginning. So like, okay.
And like
he's a man who just accepts what he sees.
Yeah. And it's a very interesting cast of characters that they chose too. Like Anders, who was a freedom fighter stuck on Caprica all that time, fighting against Cylons, blowing them up, etc. And Ty, Ty's been around for fucking ever, like he was around when Adama was young. What was he doing before that? He was just and then Chief is he's like maybe I don't know. What do you maybe like the Blackbird should have been assigned. I don't know if they knew that early on though that these were going to be the 4. I think they kind of chose them, like, if I remember, kind of last minute almost.
Yeah. The very concept of the final 4 is kind of weird, which we'll dive into more, for the season 4 and stuff. But yeah, I really feel like they just drew their names out of a hat is what they did. It was just kind of like, oh, let's see who winds up being one. But I don't know, Ty would kind of make sense, right? Because it makes the story good for season 4, and the chief, yeah. I mean, Anders, to me, look, I like Anders, but he's
the one that makes the most sense because he was the one we knew nothing about really for the longest time.
Exactly. But like, to me, I think that the biggerness of it really was between Ty and the chief. They've been there from the beginning. Tori and Anders just came on later. I really didn't like I like Anders' character. I think he's a cool guy. Like, definitely somebody I would have hung out with, But in the sense of development, I really didn't care about his character. I was like, I didn't. I was like, oh, you're a Cylon? Okay, sure. Why not? Whatever.
Yeah. And Tori was just kind of like, I All
The
right.
Tory Lang. Okay. But it does play into like a bigger thing though. It was cool that like I'm really happy that it wasn't the Admiral. I'm happy that it wasn't Boltar. I'm happy that it wasn't, you know, these other people, or whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't tell you who it should be other than because you're right. I think Chief and Ty make the most sense. I think Anders is kind of
Mhm.
like, yeah, sure, whatever. Tori is the one that I'm the most up in the air about, but that's just I mean, and she because she's close to Rosalind, it's that's the one that seems a little bit shoehorned in because it's like Ty makes sense because he does. It just makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
And I feel like they felt they had to have someone close to Rosalind be one too. So like, okay,
Mhm.
let's make Tori one. And maybe that's
Mhm.
not how it happened, but that's kind of how it feels to me. It's like, oh well, if someone close to Adama is, then we have to make someone close to Rosalind one too. And
Yeah.
do you really need them? Do you really need Cylons infiltrating both sides of your essentially
Yeah,
government there?
right. No, exactly. So when you really think about it, Anders is the one who really makes zero sense, right? Because
Yeah, I guess.
if that's what it was, because everybody is in a position of power or next to a position of power. So you have
Mm,
Ty, who's right next to, the Admiral, Tori, who's next to the president, and then the chief, who's really responsible
yep.
for, the entire fleet pretty much when it, Viper fleet and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Anders is just like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my rack now. Like what do I do here? Like,
Yeah, and he does it at this moment in time. Starbuck is gone.
no, like they should
So
have given it to fucking hot dog or something, like it
oh
would have
my
been
God.
like, you know.
That would be a fun poll. Like if you could have replaced one of the final 4, who
Mhm.
would you replace them with? Like, don't even ask which one you would replace, just let's say one of the final 4 wasn't one of them, right?
Yeah.
Whoever you want it to be, Tori, Anders, shoot even Tyre or Chief, I don't care. But if you could replace one of them with a random character for like ultimate chaos or just to be
Yeah.
funny or whatever, who would it be? And I mean, hot dog would be funny.
I honestly my vote would be to get rid of Anders and put hot dog in there. And because I can see hot dog's reaction, right? Do y'all remember when like the Exodus was happening, and they're in the Galactica's falling like a rock out of the atmosphere, and he just like, oh well, this is different. Like I can
Yeah.
imagine having that same kind of response, like walking in and being like, huh, wow, I guess we're silence,
Yeah.
like you just be
Sort
like,
of
oh,
goofy.
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shit, man, wasn't expecting that. Well, let's
And I
go
could
play
just
some
see
cards or
Ty.
something.
Yeah, and I could see Ty just looking at him like hot dog, like, you know?
Also, like, his name.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Anders have a call sign? I actually, like
No, I don't think so. I think it was just Anders.
yeah. Huh.
No, nothing cool like hot dog.
He's sports ball guy.
Sports ball guy, exactly.
Pyramid. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh,
And of course, like like you said, there's so much more to go into about the not just the 4, but the final 5 when that's
the-
revealed
yep.
in season 4. But yeah, I am glad we at least got like the Starbuck thing and like the Earth pan out, switch around.
I thought that was cool because everything that show, that season ended so chaotic. It's like
Mhm.
they're getting ready to fight. We got the, final 4 going on here. Everybody's like, oh my God, what is this? We got to go pretend to be people again, I guess, after they found out they were Cylons. And Starbucks shows up out of nowhere. And it's like, dude, what the hell? And it's
Yeah.
like you kind of forget what you're watching for a minute. And then they show Earth in the end. You're like, oh, that's what we're doing. I forgot. Okay. It's like when you're driving, and you see something
Mm,
really weird on the street, and you're just like, where the hell was I going? Like, oh, Earth,
yeah.
Earth. Oh, that's where we're going.
Like, you're so thrown by the fact that we finally that the whole final 5 Cylons thing wasn't just a thing that was gonna be dangled in front of you literally forever and maybe left as a complete mystery in the end,
Hmm.
in case of a spinoff or some bullshit. That again, that's what would happen these days, but
That's
no.
what would be this day. Yeah.
Thankfully we find out all 4 of them all at once. Also, them meeting up in that room where they're all, like, just facing each other, it just, like
Hmm. It was awesome. I like them.
John
They're just
Travolta.
like, yeah, hot dog, you know, like
Oh my god.
that's what they
That
need is like is like a lower rank military guy there because you got
yeah.
Ty who's up here, you got the chief that he's part of his own thing, and then there's like hot dog, and he's like, dude, you're a nugget. Like, what are you? Why are you even a Cylon, dude? You know, like
Why? How? What?
how? You
Why
know
is hot dog?
exactly why is hot dog?
Oh
I
my
love
god.
hot dog, man. I don't care, man. I like hot dog.
No, he's minor comedic relief, and that's
Yeah.
why it's hilarious to think about him being one of the 4. Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
Okay, now now we're going to talk about some insights we've gleaned from being longtime fans. As a reminder, while we're covering Battlestar Galactica specifically, I am going to refer to Easter eggs, bloopers, and other things that I mention as Dean sites because my partner Dean knows far more about the series than I ever could, and he is always pointing things out to me. So I long ago lost track of what I knew before I knew him. And on that note, what's our first Dean site, Manny?
First Dean side is we actually have 2 Apollo-centric things to talk about. The first being that the episode Taking a Break from All Your Worries was originally contrived to be this episode where Apollo worked to create a replacement Cloud9, opening either as a casino or a resort ship, which, LOL, what? Apparently, this storyline was inspired by both the character in Catch 22 and by an episode of MASH. But still.
Yeah, I never watched MASH. It's a little before my time, but
I did. I watched it. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't.
it's
It was younger than it's older than me, but my dad used to watch it. So as a kid, I used to watch it with him.
I don't know if you've ever read Catch 22. I've
No.
only read it once, and it was a long time ago. But the guy, he's like the head of the supply chain or something. His name is like Miles. I don't know how to pronounce it. Minder, Binder. I don't know. It's a stupid name. But I mean, either way, yeah, I'm glad they didn't have
Yeah.
Baby Dama becoming like some sort of
Yeah.
casino mogul.
And they could have given us Black Market Part 2,
Oh, well, I mean, there is that, I guess. Would people still hate Black Market as much if Apollo had
Yeah.
opened a casino or resort ship and had his own Black Market issues all over again? Huh.
Exactly.
Well, that whole dumped plot is especially amusing to me, considering that not only did Apollo not become some sort of casino or resort mogul, but he later turns lawyer. So it's still like it's like, let's just throw things at Apollo and see what sticks. And in this
See what
case, it was
sticks.
lawyer.
Lawyer.
So Ronald Moore admitted that Lee's sudden interest in the law is probably awkward, and like because it comes kind of out of nowhere. But Moore also said that like you have to allow a TV show to invent things about characters as they develop, and he believed that this particular change paid off really well. And I don't disagree with that. I think that Apollo's foray into the law paid off really well. But yeah, it did seem just like all of a sudden it's like, oh, Lee needs a hobby. What's it gonna be?
Yep.
Law codes and shit.
Books,
Did he even take the bar? How could he practice law?
Yeah, guys, if we're going to be all about the law like you guys are doing and he deserves a trial, doesn't he deserve a lawyer? And you're not one,
Yeah. And also Baltar has a lawyer already, but Lee ends up having to take up much of the case because of the bombing and everything. So, but yeah, I don't know. I agree that the lawyer thing for Apollo did pay off well, but it was a bit of an abrupt about face for this new hobby of his.
but at least the hobby made sense, right? Because he's like, he's a pilot and he has to do, and he's all like, I don't know, dignified and stuff. So it would make sense. It's like, yeah, from going from that to lawyer makes more sense than from going to that to like, the Black Market Part 2.
Yeah.
So, I think that is less of a stretch than
yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. He would have to find some spiffy suits somewhere, and I can't picture it,
Oh, I
honestly.
can picture him in like the purple suit with like the mustard yellow like shirt, like yeah, dude, like I
Oh,
could have seen it
man.
with the big rings on his fingers and stuff, and like
Oh my god.
yeah. Okay, so those are the two things we're changing. He builds the casino, and hot dog is one of the final four. All
Mhm,
right,
mhm, mhm.
there we go. We're gonna rewrite this.
Alright, what's our next, Dean site?
So apparently, Kat was supposed to make a brief reappearance in Maelstrom, showing up in a brand new Viper just before Starbuck dies to tell her not to worry.
Which is
I I'm
it's
glad
like
they didn't do
literally
that.
yeah, they gave that to Starbuck,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It would've
Good.
been really, like, heavy-handed to have Cat come back to do that.
Yeah,
Like
because Kat was just a thorn in her side. Like I don't know. It wouldn't. I think that, and if they did try to do the same scene at the end, in Crossroads Part 2 to mimic that scene, if they did put the scene in, it would have made that latter scene like not as good and not as
yeah,
powerful. You
yeah,
know.
exactly. Um, also, apparently Lee and Anders were supposed to get in a fight in the wake of Starbuck's death, but Moore felt this was too expected,
Yeah.
which, yeah, I'm really glad they didn't do that. Like, we don't even too expected or just also, like,
It's just
rote.
cliche. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, two guys are we're gonna box it out now because we both loved this girl. It's like, sigh.
Well, and it's also stupid because, like, why? Because Kara, even though she wasn't divorced, her and Anders were separated. So,
Yeah.
like, uh, what would be the impetus behind one of
Hmm.
them starting to throw fists, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't have made any
Um,
sense.
yeah, yeah. All right, our last Dean site.
Last Dean sight. Although there is a plot line in the original BSG in which Starbuck dies and is brought back to life by a race of godlike aliens, Moore apparently had to be reminded that this happened and and then said it wasn't something that came up when they killed and subsequently brought back Kara. Thrace. I didn't see that second line there. Brought back Kara. Thrace. He specifically stated it never came up and had no bearing on the episode.
Which I think is kind of interesting. Like, really? You didn't remember that at all, and you happen to kind of do
Yeah.
a very, very similar thing? I mean, I'm not like I'm not calling him out on it because it's not the exact same, but
Mhm.
it just seems like it's interesting that when he was being interviewed about it, he was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that was the thing, wasn't it?" No, we didn't think about that at all.
Like, no, yeah, I didn't even see that episode. I don't know what you're talking about. And then as he's saying that, you hear the song in the background, it's like, wait a minute. This has all happened before and it's gonna happen again.
Oh my god. Okay. Onto our personal insights. The torture stuff with Baltar again. That's my first one. I'm so over
Mhm.
it. Like I get that based on when this episode aired, it was supposed to reflect what was going on slash was
Mhm.
possibly, probably, definitely going on, at Guantanamo Bay.
Mhm.
And the drug stuff, of course, was reflecting the CIA's experimentation with LSD torture. But I don't know, I just thinks I hate it, and no matter how frustrating or annoying or maddening we find Baltar, can we please just stop with the torture scenes? It's
Yeah.
just especially with him and, like, in 2 episodes, there's like, "Oh, let's watch him be tortured by the Cylons forever," and then it's like, "Oh, let's watch
Mhm.
him an entire episode of him being tortured by the people," like
Yeah, I thought it was a bit much. And again, this is one of those things that it's like you could have just implied it and then just kept going with it, and just like, okay, yeah, we didn't have to spend time with that, But you're
yeah,
right. I'm right there with you.
they really wanted to show Baltar, on LSD. I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. They just want him to be tripping balls and being like, here you go, you're in the water now, But So for one of mine, I couldn't find the original article, but I had read that Ronald Moore was trying to incorporate All Along the Watchtower into a Star Trek Next Generation episode, or it was a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode. And it was supposed to be under some kind of weird context like that, and the same thing where people started hearing it in the ship for some reason.
Mhm.
I don't know how that was ever supposed to conclude, but I thought that was interesting that I couldn't find the original article. I was trying to find it, but I remember reading it just to see what the context of it was, like what the episode was supposed to be about. But it was supposed to incorporate that. So I thought it was interesting that he finally got to do it, years
Yeah.
later on, on this show.
Yeah, I wonder, like, there's that. I'll have to look it up after the fact because there is that part of me that's wondering why that song. And, of course, I love the song and whatever, but
Hmm.
and the choice, and it works really well in Battlestar, especially Bear McCreary's version of it. But
Hmm.
yeah, it does make me wonder, like, why with Ronald Moore in that song if he was
And
trying
it's,
to work it
yeah,
into another show before?
and it's great, right? Because I've always said this for a long time. It's that anytime you hear that song in a movie, something is about to go down.
Mm.
Always. Anytime that has shown up in any type of media or like movie or television show, like we all know shit was about to get real. So I love the fact that this is just following with that tradition of
Yeah.
like, okay, because even season 4, when you start really hearing the song, or the end of season 3, and then in season 4, we all know like, okay, some shit's gonna be fucking happening. Like it's
Yeah.
perfect. It goes with the tradition of it.
Um. Okay, so a little bit on a sad note here. Starbuck and Apollo at the memorial
Hmm.
wall. That like again, I was choked up. I was choked
Yeah.
up. This is before she dies, obviously, but just watching these two like best friends, even though they both have
Hmm.
spouses, but they're best friends and they've known each other forever. And she's basically
Hmm.
part of the Adama family, et cetera, et cetera. And they're talking about where they want their pictures to go. And oh God, Starbuck next to Cat, which is whatever, fine.
Hmm.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, like as we've discussed, Thorn and Cat was a thorn in Starbuck's side, and vice versa. They were kind of rivals in
Exactly.
in life, but I mean, I
Hmm.
get it, it's like if Anders isn't there and Lee isn't there, then
Yeah.
sure, put her up next to this other really great Viper pilot. And then Lee, I can't remember the name, but he wants to go next to the redheaded guy who died. He was the bomber, the suicide bomber in on New Caprica, right? I'm Duck.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I just remember that. It just
Mhm,
came it
mhm,
just came in my head. So Lee apparently wants to be next to them, which again is like I guess because there's like these are the people who are up there now. And I understand, he's like, they died heroes or whatever, but it's still like, oh, okay,
mhm.
let's just, a cat died recently. I guess let's give poor Duck, who we hardly knew a little
Yeah,
nod.
like, let's not forget that you guys kinda conned him into just blowing himself up, like, come on
Yeah.
now,
Well, to be fair,
you
Apollo
know?
was not part of that. He was up in the Galactica.
No, yeah, he wasn't, but then again, it's like, then why would you wanna be next to him? Like, I
Yeah.
don't. Alright. Here's the next insight for you. It's not so much insightful as much as just a thought in my head. Does anyone else find it a little difficult to feel anything for Callie's character in the rewatch after everything that this actress was doing semi recently? I mean, I get the art of like separating the art from the artist, but I'm probably not as intellectual as I like to think I am, and I definitely had a little bit of a hard time with it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Callie annoyed me when I, like, watched the series originally, so also knowing, um, that the actress and honestly, like, I'm blanking on what her name is, but, uh, it's just knowing that what is it?
Nexium,
Nixium, yeah, whatever the fuck it
Nexium.
was. I
Mhm,
watched half the documentary, but I had to step away from it because it was getting just really repetitive and it's like no new
mhm,
information. And then there were some people, including maybe possibly this person, who didn't seem to feel any like remorse for their part
mhm.
in the cult, which so yeah, that's definitely adding to my like I never really like Callie always kind of
Yeah,
annoyed me feeling.
yeah.
So okay. My last, it's not really, it's probably less an insight and more a question, but did we really need the backstory stuff about Carol Ann Adama?
Ooh,
Yes, sir. I
me.
pick you. I pick you.
Okay. No, we didn't need that at all. Again, it was something that you could have implied for 5 minutes instead of spending an entire episode doing it. I'm gonna say no, we didn't need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't I didn't like it. I don't feel like it really added anything like all that
No.
much. I think there was like an interview with Moore or maybe the episode director. He said that what they were trying for was like to show some of why Apollo and Adama are kind of at odds with each other, why there's
Mhm.
some kind of distance and maybe not always, lovey-dovey family feelings there, but it's like I before this episode aired, like I always put that to that Adama was gone for most of Apollo's childhood. Like
Yeah.
and even even once they're spending more time together, now he's his boss. So,
Yeah.
like of course there's going to be some maybe if not harsh feelings, but some distance and like
Mhm.
whatever there. And then of course, and there's this whole like, well, he's Admiral Adama and Apollo is constantly feeling the need to prove himself, et cetera, even
Mhm.
if Adama isn't necessarily asking for it, which he kind of is a lot of the time. So I there was nothing about this backstory that I think added to either one of their
No.
characters or to their relationship. And I didn't like it.
And I mean, they really just I get doing the flashbacks where you can see that like Adama's a little more of like a tortured soul, I guess. But if he was the one that was gone all the time and like all this stuff, I don't know. I think it just kind of falls flat. And it was too much. To have that for an entire episode, pretty much.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Uh oh, and also that was you mentioned that to have this like one episode that's like entirely centered on this sort of odd uh relationship flashback stuff, but uh and this episode was called A Day in the Life.
Hmm.
And it also featured the Tyrell Callie thing where they get stuck in the
Yeah.
airlock.
Hmm.
Um and like the Tyrell Callie thing was supposed to be the B plot. And even more, I think, admitted that the B plot was like more effective and
Yeah.
interesting than this whole
Hmm.
like A plot of Adama having flashbacks about his wife.
Yep.
And I agree. And also like it just calling the episode a day in the title doesn't really fit to me at all. Cause
Mm-mm.
if Adama's only thinking about his ex now dead wife one day out of the year, how is that that's not an everyday in the life, which is
It's an
what
everyday
that
thing.
phrase
Exactly.
is supposed to connotate.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think they should have had, if they were going to do an episode like they were trying to do, A Day in the Life, they should have made it the most mundane episode possible and
Yeah,
just focused a lot more on just character,
yeah,
to where it's like, okay, you know, the chief gets up every morning and this is what he does. And he goes here and he's dealing with something stupid. And it's just, oh, and then Apollo is like doing some paperwork and he's just really bored. And he's just like, oh my gosh.
getting
I
drunk
always,
at Joe's bar at the end of the day.
exactly. And maybe that's how it is, right? Like it's like they're telling five different stories of the that's just almost kind of mundane and kind of like, oh my gosh. Because we see all the exciting stuff with the launch attack Vipers and all the stuff. We don't see like all the paperwork Adama does afterwards or like all the
Yeah.
meetings that like Laura Rosalind has to go to. So maybe it's like they show all these things and the meetings are boring as hell and the paperwork is boring. But then at the end, they all meet up at Joe's bar and get shit faced, you know?
All along the Watchtower plays in the
E
background.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, wait, a little too early for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they do play the song, previously in the show, but this is
Mhm.
in Crossroads Part 1, I believe, is the first time any of the characters are actually, like, hearing it.
Hearing it, yeah.
Or maybe it's just when maybe they're hearing it when it's playing in Joe's bar, but they're just the only ones. Like, Anders, I think, is like, "What's that song?" And everybody's like, "What? It's just a song." Or maybe they're I don't know.
It was the
Um,
chief, it was Ty first because he was on the radio going,
yeah.
"Ksh," and it kept and that's when Anders looks at, like, at a distance, and he's like, "Wait, you almost had it," and, like, that was when it started, when they started hearing it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like, of course, an episode like that wouldn't have really like flown. Let's be real. And to be fair, I would say that the episode with where Deanna Beers appears and is doing the like interviewing
Yeah.
everybody, that's
Mhm.
probably closest to an actual true day in the life episode. Uh,
The boxing
more so than
episode
this.
too. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
those are
More
just
so
like,
than this one.
yeah, agreed.
Um, so yeah, I think it's just an odd title. I wonder if it wasn't supposed to be that in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, yeah, true, true.
Um, all right. Any other insights about these episodes? I mean, and actually we're at the conclusion of season 3. So like I think we should close out with yeah, how we're feeling so far about where the series has gone and where we think and we know it's going now, but like where we thought it, when we first viewed it and didn't know what was going to happen next, where we thought it was going to go
Yeah,
after this and stuff. Cause I mean, listen, season 3 ended on a real strong note there, like you said earlier.
yeah,
So,
it was super strong. Where it went from there, where I thought it was going to go, I had no idea. I just knew that everything was going to be chaos, and I'm just like,
mhm.
dude, everything is going to be crazy, you know. Now, where it was there towards the end, I didn't really expect the final four to be who they were. You know, I really didn't. You know, because I was really like, I was like, no, it's got to be this person. It's got to be this person, but it wasn't. You know, and when they kind of just showed them, it was just, it wasn't like a disappointment, but it was kind of like a huh, like okay,
Yeah, yeah.
like that's interesting, you know,
Or at least for a couple of them anyway.
for a couple of them.
Like, huh, why is it hot dog here?
Mhm. I was like, okay, so if you're here and you're here and you're here, that means the last one is hot dog. Come on, hot dog.
I mean, of course, like as soon as the first of them, I can't remember which one walks into the room like absolute first, but as soon as the first one of them walks into the room and you realize, like, okay, well, that person, who are the other 3 who are hearing that song for the
Hearing the
past 2
song,
episodes? Like, obviously, I mean, even before that, you knew something was up with
you
these
knew something was
4.
up
Like,
because they were saying the lyrics too, and they were the
yeah,
only four doing it, and it was like, okay, there's something going on here.
yeah, yeah.
But at this point, really, I wasn't even 100% sure that had to do with like a Cylon thing, right? Because it
Yeah,
was
no,
like
me either. Not
there
the
was all
first
these like,
time.
yeah, there was all these like prophecy things and all these things going
Mhm.
on, and it was just like maybe this is some kind of weird thing, you know? Like I don't know. So, but I didn't really think of it to be like a Cylon thing at first, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I agree.
then it turned out being something. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting, you know, that you picked these four. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, two of them make sense. The other two are just they just got here, you know. But okay, you know,
Yeah, we can't say they don't even go here because they totally do, but,
yeah,
they're like that new student that pops in halfway through 10th grade or something, and,
yeah, exactly.
like,
And they get the
"You missed
award for
all of
something.
freshman year. We're" Yeah,
Exactly.
get the award. "Oh, and you get a Cylon, and you get a
You get a
Cylon."
Cylon. Hot dog's like, I've been here since season 2, man, and I don't get to be a Cylon. You know, I'm Edward James Olmos's son, for Christ's sake. You know, like,
I always forget that actor is his son, honestly. You can't really see it, like,
no,
I don't really like see it, but I've also never I don't know if I've ever seen them like standing next to each other, honestly.
no, yeah, no, I
He's
don't
hot
think.
dog in the show isn't important enough
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
hanging out with a doll.
Be hanging out with his dad. You know, it's like, you're just an extra on this set. Get over there. You know?
Yeah, he's like I don't know. He's probably not quite even a tertiary character, but we see
Yeah.
enough of him that it would have been funny to have just some random character that's been around for a long time, but we don't see all that much. Yeah, they just pop in and out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, guess what? You get a big role next season, hot dog.
Hot dog. You know, but I think that's what Battlestar has done so fucking good though, right? Is that they always have these weird side characters that you think
Mhm.
nothing of, and then they wind up becoming like, you know, like who was the guy, the collaborator who gets killed first, you know? Like he was like, I think he was all the way back in the miniseries, and he was just like a deckhand, just some rando. And it's like, wow, his story arc went all the way over here. I was like, you know, and he became an important part of that in particular arc, right? And I was like, see, that's really awesome that they get these like, and that's why we remember these people, you know, like Racetrack and all these things, that they were just side characters. They were like nobodies, you know, and it was like they've always done good with that, you know. So I always like that's the show I would have wanted to be an extra on, because maybe one day I can be a hot dog, you know.
Oh my god, lines out of context. That's a show I don't want to be an extra on, because one day maybe I can be a hot dog.
I can be a hot dog.
Oh man. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to figuring out how to split up season 4 and talk about it, because there's a lot going on in season 4.
A lot to unpack there.
And the last season.
Yep.
Okay, well.
Till we get to the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That just popped up on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's been there for a while, but I hadn't seen it.
You know what it was?
I think they added it recently-ish.
No, it was on there, I think, because they didn't have Blood and Chrome and they didn't have Razor, like the two things that you would want to watch on Amazon. No. They put the plan on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot that they didn't have Razor. Do you have to like dig out his DVDs?
That's what I had to do. I had to dig it out. I was like, dude, I know I got it here somewhere.
Oh man. All right. Well, as we close out the episode, we just want to thank you for joining us for our 9th Media That Made Us episode on the Crossroads arc of Battlestar Galactica Season 3. We will be back soon to begin our discussions of BSG Season 4. In the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or rate us 5 stars wherever you're watching or listening. And as always, please also consider supporting us by backing our Patreon at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment. Bye.